to reports today that the new Queensland government could renege on its predecessor's deal to give nearly $500 million in partnership with the federal government to the US-based startup PsiQuantum, seeking to create the world's first viable quantum computer. Now, from day one, this billion-dollar taxpayer giveaway has stunk to high heaven. If it was such a good deal, why the need for a $1 billion subsidy? If it stood up, why wasn't there an open tender process? Now, on the evidence so far, it seems that this business could be better at connecting with Labor lobbyists than wisely spending those many millions. Businesses that need taxpayer support usually make us poorer, not richer. Labor just doesn't get it. There's no such thing as government money. It's our money that they take from us. And when they waste it, the money that we work so hard to earn, well, nothing gets us more worked up. Joining me now to discuss this and more, and in particular his new documentary coming up, Sky News contributor Chris Uhlmann. Chris, I have to say, $1 billion in subsidies to something that's not ever been built to scale, where there are real probity concerns about the awarding of that contract. I can't even call it a tender. It didn't go through the usual tender processes that I'm experienced with in government. What do you make of this move that it looks like today that the Queensland state government's going to walk away?
Yeah, well, Peter, what do we know about this deal? We know that there was an expression of interest issued last year by the government to try and get people in the quantum industry to put forward for a project like this. We know that PsiQuantum wasn't part of that. And while others were putting forward their proposals, PsiQuantum was already in discussions with the Australian government, and the industry department had already set up a task force to review it. So it wasn't part of that project at all. We also know that there was a relationship between someone in the minister's office and someone involved in the venture capitalist that's behind this company. Now, none of that necessarily means anything. It could be all squeaky clean. But of course, like so many government contracts in Australia at a state and federal level, we just don't know, Peter. And that's the problem. Too often commercial in confidence is used to disguise things, and a little bit of sunlight would go a long way. If we were in the United States, there would be a whole lot more scrutiny of this kind of deal, and a whole lot more stuff would have to be public.
I was just talking to a guest on the program a moment ago, Dr. David Barton, about the locking up of state and national parks around the country. It's happening everywhere. They're either being used for wind turbine placement, or they're being closed down for Indigenous heritage reasons, as we see with a rock climbing place in the Grampians. But he was also talking about the sale of, or land being made available to private companies to then sell carbon permits, basically turning parks into carbon sinks. What sort of knowledge do you have of this?
Peter, I don't have much knowledge about that at all, but I will say that many of the government departments that we have now seem to be operating more as activists than they are as departments. One difference between Australia and the United States, and something I didn't think was a good thing about the US, is when the president comes in, he'll simply clean out an enormous amount of the bureaucracy and put his own people in. And I was always in favour of a bureaucracy that was frank and fearless in its advice. But I'm sorry, I feel at the moment that it's too much captured by a whole lot of vested interests, and too much, again, is going on behind closed doors. There are decisions being made by bureaucrats that are having effects on the lives of ordinary Australians, and there is no transparency about what's going on.
Sometimes I think, Chris, there's no line of sight even from the minister. I think that the delegated powers to some of these chief bureaucrats are being signed off, quite legally, but governments are not aware of what's going on. Let's go to your documentary. Of course, it's going to air here on Sky News next Tuesday, because all the experts are saying that gas is the only backstop we have at scale to keep the lights on as we head down the path of net zero. Have a listen.
We will have batteries, we will have pumped hydro, but we'll have times like we've seen earlier this year where there's not much wind and there's not much sun, and the gas-fired power stations are really required to back up the reliability of the grid.
And that's a big problem because Australia's east coast is running out of gas.
Just go to the report of the energy market operator who said that energy shortfalls are likely as early as next year. There was a warning earlier this winter saying we're approaching the crisis point. So I think we're dangerously close to that point already.
So we're running out of gas, Chris, but the issue isn't gas in the ground or, Australia's supply of gas. It's the availability of gas, and that's a very different thing.
Yes, Peter, and we've made gas rare. And how have we made gas rare? Well, because Victoria banned the exploration of gas for a decade. And that's what Meg O'Neill was saying there. Money goes where it's welcome, and gas wasn't welcome in Victoria. New South Wales has been not much better at all, and both of them are bleeding for gas that comes from Queensland, from coal seam gas. And of course, Victoria has a ban on coal seam gas in Victoria, even though it's got gas under its own feet. Look, it would be hard to make up what a mess we have made of the electricity sector as we try to decarbonise. But I'll point this out, is that the Energy Minister, who's now off overseas, about this time last year, told the COP conference, that's the Council of Parties, that's the jamboree they go to every year, that fossil fuel had no ongoing role in Australia's electricity generation. Well, he didn't seem to understand the system that he was building, because the system that he's building demands gas and lots of it, 15 gigawatts, enough to back up 15 million homes. So this is not, as I say, a backup, this is a backbone of the system. This system will not function as a reliable electricity grid unless it has a fossil fuel in the system to 2050 and beyond.
So I've made the point at the top of the show, Chris, we've got an election due by May. We've got a budget in March. We've got the Prime Minister today saying he'll call it in April. No surprises. In April, he says, or before, which falls into my argument they're going to have to go early, because I think they've got two key dates looming in February. One is the 2035 emissions reduction targets. We're working to the 2030 targets now. Those 2030 targets are tough. That's why our power prices are going up. They will only get worse for 2035 because they've got to really go hard on two things: the food we eat, agriculture, and also transport. But allied with is the 2025, just mentioned, the default market offer. This is what we will pay for power prices in the short term. Both of those are due, and that would be a shocking start to an election campaign.
Oh, well, electricity prices are going up. That's what our documentary will tell people, and we'll tell people why those electricity prices are going up and why they must go up because of the kind of system that we're building. The two things that you need to know about this system: it will be expensive and it will be unreliable. And the people that are building it, I don't believe, actually understood what they were doing when they were building it, because the people who demonised gas, Victoria and New South Wales, and the Energy and Climate Change Minister, were the people who are demonising gas. Now they can't get enough. Their system operator is demanding that they get as much as they possibly can between now and 2050 to keep the lights on. So one of the things that's culpable about this, Peter, is I genuinely think the people that talk about this all the time have no idea, no understanding what they're talking about. But guess what? Physics is going to trump platitudes all the time.
They make it all sound very complex because they don't want people at home to understand what's going on, Chris. That's precisely why. I'm really looking forward to this doco. I can't believe you got Daniel Westerman on camera. He doesn't do a lot of media. I look forward to seeing it, and thank you for your time. There it is, that documentary. Do not forget to watch it. Tuesday, the 19th of November, so next Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. I'm sure it'll be the first of many from Chris Uhlmann.